Some Free Speech Friday, brought to you by the Free Speech Unions. We certainly appreciate their support. And we've got Stuart Nash, former Labour Party Minister and former National Party, I was about to say former National Party Prime Minister. No, it wasn't quite. Well, almost, but a National Party Minister and Auckland City Councillor Maurice Williamson. Guys, g'day. Nice to have you on the program.
Good morning, Stuart.
Maurice, how are you, mate? Congratulations on the pragmatic stadium vote, by the way.
I didn't think there was any alternative.
What do you
did, but oh well.
Yeah. So, how are you feeling about things, Maurice? This morning, we're going with Eden Park with the upgrade if we can find the money. Waterfront Stadium, bang, dead in the water.
Yeah, I sort of liked the sunken pit one that was out in the middle of the harbour. I thought that was really realistic. But honestly, Eden Park was always going to be it. You've got to be dreaming if you didn't think it was. The fact is that there's still a long way to go in terms of how they will fund some of that expansion, how much government money, because, big events do bring economic activity and do bring taxation revenue to the country. So, and that's been proven on a number of things. Even the last Rugby World Cup brought a huge amount of money into the country. So central government will be up for having to think about some of it. The only thing we put down on our resolution yesterday, and I was sort of pretty insistent that was one of it, is we back Eden Park thoroughly. We're just not prepared to put any more ratepayers' money into it.
So who should pay then?
Well, I think they've got to find some private sector money overseas. Big stadiums have been built by consortiums who make a big return. The one I love is the Intuit Stadium as you flying into Los Angeles Airport. As you're landing, look out to your right window, and there's a big stadium there. Cost $2 billion US, 4 billion NZ, built by Steve Ballmer, the ex-chief executive of Microsoft, with his own money. He just went out and built a big stadium for the Los Angeles Clippers basketball team. There's heaps of money floating around the big sporting. So if you look at the sums of money involved in soccer and Formula One and so on, this idea that the poor old ratepayer who's struggling to put food on the table needs to keep funding it, I think's a bit of a past regime. I think big sporting codes and huge dollars will follow teams that do well. So I was just prepared to say Eden Park will be it, even if it just stays as it is. I don't know whether it necessarily needs the upgrades right now or when, but when it does and when it makes a business case sense, go to it. And maybe the central government will say tourism dollars and the economic benefit, the GST, etc., is enough for us to put something into it. If they do, good on them. If they don't, that's
how do you Yeah, Stuart, I'll bring you in here. How do you build it? How do you put a retractable roof on Eden Park? It's such a massive ground. The argument is it's too big. It's so hard to see the rugby when you're there. How would you do? I mean, there's a lot of money involved here. If it's 100 billion, it'll be 200 billion. So, do you think taxpayers should pay, Stu?
You mean the people from Good Hawke's Bay should pay for Eden Park? I'm not too sure about that.
Yes,
mate.
Please.
I do like Maurice's view that. Well, I don't know. I do like the fact that you crowd in some private sector money, get really commercial about this and see if you can make an economic return off it. I'll tell you the irony of the vote, though. I had a look at this. Mike Lee abstained. Now, this was the guy that single-handedly squashed Labour spending $1 billion on a waterfront stadium back when Trevor was a minister. Helen was the PM, prepared to put the money in. If Mike Lee had been someone who was pragmatic and sensible and had Auckland's best interest in mind at the time, Auckland would already have a waterfront stadium, and he abstained. What the hell was that about, Maurice?
Look, I don't know. I don't know what some of the votes yesterday. There were some of the left-leaning councillors literally having to sort of hold their nose and put a peg on it, and still as they voted, because Helen Clark's come out and said it's a dreadful decision. It was all wrong, and so when Helen says that, those who are sort of left-leaning try to work out why they've gone wrong or where they went wrong. I just thought it was hilariously funny. It was literally saying, do you want the death penalty or do you want 3 months home detention? So you choose how you vote on that one, but it's pretty simple to know what the vote's going to look like. And it just...
I think if you guys had voted, if you'd voted for the Waterfront Stadium at $1 billion, it wouldn't have meant a thing. And the reason I say that is Auckland could not have afforded it, the government could afford it. It would have been a resolution on a bit of paper that sat around and gathered dust and nothing would have got done.
Well,
Yeah, well, maybe
Stewie,
that
I can
this,
tell you I was one of the-
maybe that this decision that's been made doesn't mean anything either, because maybe Morris, that we don't do anything. I mean, it just stays status quo.
Well, but what it is we've given it some recognition is that's where the council thinks it should go. That's all that vote was. It did nothing else. We're not partnering with them, as Shane Henderson, one of the councillors and chairman of the thing, says. This means we're partnering with Auckland, with Eden Park. No, we're not. If we were partnering, we would be putting in some money. What we're just saying is we don't think there is another stadium that is needed. However, we did not rule out if private sector money, if Steve Ballmer wanted to pop down here with so many of his $100 billion that he's got in his pocket and build a stadium, good, go to it. I'm a bit different to Stuart on this. I'm a big fan of the waterfront land's value. Real value is the out view when you're looking out. So restaurants, bars, entertainment, apartment living, because the best value is to look at. If you build a stadium, you know what you do in a stadium? You look inward. You look into the ground and onto the grass. And it's empty for the vast bulk of the year. And when it has got somebody in it, they're not looking out at the beautiful view. So I don't think using the prime bit of real estate for that. But anyway, someone can if they want to put their own money up and take the risk.
What are we going to do with that land then? Because this is possibly the most expensive, the most prime land in New Zealand. And it's sitting there growing weeds, and there's an America's Cup village that never happened because he took it across to Europe. So what are we going to do with it, Morris? Because there's a lot of money tied up in that land.
Well, you've just answered one of the questions I asked on my first week when I got elected to council. I asked the people involved in the funding of the America's Cup, and remember, the last time around we held it, it was a disaster because of COVID. Now, no one could have seen COVID coming, so you can't blame anybody for that. But I asked them outright at the meetings, did anybody think of putting a clause in the contract with Grant Dalton which said, if you win this, you've got to do at least the next 2 defences here in New Zealand? And you know what their answer was? Oh, if we'd done that, he wouldn't have signed. Well, cool. Don't
see
sign.
Then, because we've given them $320 million, and you've got all that land down there. I mean, I had a look the other day. I went down there the other day. I think they've sent a few containers back from Europe, but this is land that is worth hundreds of millions of bucks, and it's just sitting there idle. Morris, that's a bad investment.
And he buggered off to Barcelona, and Barcelona got all the economic benefit of it. So, I mean, I have to say that some of our negotiators are not the sharpest pencil in the pencil case in terms of tying somebody down. If you're putting that money in, you want some longevity of the return. Now, I agree they didn't know COVID was coming, but you still could have guaranteed at least 3 that regatta and 2 defences or something.
Stuart, if you were still in Parliament, if you were still there and you were going to the next election, you would have the Greens as a coalition partner, and you would have Tamatha Paul as your benchmate.
Stop spoiling
as your associate police minister. Hey, what on earth's got into the Greens, Stuart? You can defend them now.
Look, no, I can't. Look, the thing is that people tend to forget that at one point in time, in the mid-1990s, you remember this, Morris, because you were in Parliament, and Doug, you were probably commentating. The Alliance and Labor were neck and neck, and there was all this commentary saying that, the Alliance is going to take over from Labor, but then Helen Clark got her shit sorted out, and Labor came to the fore, and the Alliance was dead in the water. Same with the Greens. The Greens have moved from an environmentally focused party that had that was always about a 6 or 7 or 8% party, never 11%, 6 or 7 or 8%. And they had a constituency around people, and you look at the facts around this. They used to call them Remuera housewives and Meadowbank mums. These were people whose husbands tended, I'm generalising here, but you've got to do this in politics, whose husband tended to vote at National, and their rationale was, National's got 1 vote in the House, I'm going to vote for Greens because I love the environment and this sort of carry on. Those people will never, ever vote for the Greens in the way that the Greens are now. The Greens have gone from an environmental party to a socially radical party. And when you get the one term, mark my words on this, the one term member for Wellington Central dissing cops on the beat, you wonder what the hell's going on. If I was Hipkins, there are 2 things I'd do. I would rule out ever working with the Maori Party. I'd just cauterise that now, because I don't think Kiwis will ever vote for a party that where they think that the Maori Party may have some say in the economic direction, let alone the social direction of the country. And the Greens, I would distance myself, but it's like the ACT Party. I mean, the ACT... they're just as bad as the Greens, but just on the different end of the scale. I mean, look at Seymour, a very mediocre performance over the last 18 months. But Tamatha Paul, what the hell was she thinking, dissing more cops on the beat? Incredulous. And we're not allowed to swear on the radio, Duck, and that's probably lucky, because my reaction to what I read around what she said was, what the fuck was she thinking?
Yeah.
Well, that's a broadcasting standards complaint straight away.
Yeah,
but
no,
honestly,
but
Duncan,
something's justified.
I'd like to go wandering down the leafy suburbs of Kandala and Karori and ask all those lovely, doctors' wives who think, well, I voted for Tamatha Paul because... Are you really sure that you were happy with that? Because this is disgraceful. This is just... and what I'd want to point out to your listeners, because this is really important, they'll try to walk this back, and the Greens leaders will finally say, well, that's not our policy. You need to know that. But what you do need to know is that is the thinking that is in there. That is their mindset. That is what they believe. And those people are just dangers to the whole of our community when they believe that, and we should replace the police with Maori wardens. What does that mean? You're trying to say that all the crime has been conducted by Maori then? Is that what she's saying? Because that's racist.
I think it's worse.
I'm a huge fan of it.
Yeah, I think it's worse, because I think when she says that, people are frightened of the police being on the beat, that's only the criminals on the run who are trying to avoid the police on the beat. So that means that she immerses herself in that community because she's speaking on their behalf. The only people that worry about police on the beat are people on the run.
Yeah, and when she said, I thought this was hilarious. She said there's a person in jail for stealing $12, okay, or whatever it was. And you go, hang on. They can't even detain you at a supermarket if you're stealing anything less than 1,000. You can go in and grab what you like, give them the middle finger and walk on out. Do you seriously believe somebody is in jail right now for having stolen $12? Come on. And how could any member of parliament say that? And then when she was asked to give the evidence, she says, oh, well, I was told.
Actually...
you got to check it out, baby.
Corrections or Justice came out and said, you're actually wrong. Maurice, since you and I left, standards have dropped so far. It's disgraceful. But if you and I had said that as a member of the National or the Labour caucus, we would have been hung, drawn and quartered.
Would you ever? You would never see the light of day.
What the hell?
Yeah.
No, you wouldn't at all.
But you talk about standards
have dropped.
Right. Stuart, you talk about standards have dropped. In the late 1990s, as Minister of Transport, I went to a Rotary lunch. And when I walked into the Central Wellington Rotary Club, they get with the program. What's wrong with you? It's Wellington's tireless day, and no one in Rotary that day had a tie on. So I took my tie off, had my lunch, did my speech. Secretary said, you've got to be back in the House. You're up for question 1. Jumped in the VIP LTD, flew back to Parliament, got into my seat to answer the questions. Jonathan Hunt takes a point of order. Point of order, Mr. Speaker. The Minister of Transport's not wearing a tie. And I looked down, oh, shit. I've left it on the back of the seat down at the Wellington Rotary Club. I got thrown out of Parliament. You should have seen them yesterday. I was watching yesterday. They look, it's good to see a tailor with a sense of humour because some of those people look like just bizarre art exhibitions.
It's disgraceful. Yeah. And for those who haven't sat in the chamber, and that's the vast majority of your listeners, mate, all around the wall of the chamber of the House are plaques denoting the battles that New Zealanders have fought and died in for our democracy. And there are people in there who look like they're off to a bloody Hawaiian party. And I blame Trevor for this. The Maori Party said we shouldn't wear ties because they're a representation of colonial oppression. Oh, get off your high horse. This is a place of respect. You don't have to wear a tie in many places in our country these days, but Parliament should be one. And that was the only time I petitioned the Speaker and said, you've got to maintain standards in this House. And he didn't, and as a consequence of that, people wear sneakers, jeans, and open-neck shirts and hats. And it's a bloody disgrace in my view.
The Mexican green lad was there yesterday wearing a leather jacket like a biker's jacket. And you think, I'm sorry, there is, I'm not the biggest fan of having to wear suits all the time either, but Parliament is one of those formal occasions where I think some standard of decorum and decency, now it just looks like a bloody rabbled outfit at a Christmas party for the disabled. It's just shocking.